I think the key is identify those limiting beliefs that you have about yourself, and then do whatever you need to do to try and break through those. It's not going to happen overnight, but I guarantee you will discover something new and you will be amazed at the opportunities that present themselves. So just do it.
Welcome to yourbrilliance.com. I'm your host, Amy Waterman. So you know that to get anywhere in life, you've got to hustle, right? You've got to sell yourself. You've got to make other people believe in you. But how do you do that when you're just like you, right? You're ordinary. I mean, you're good at what you do, but you're not world famous by any means. And there are a lot of other people with more charisma than you. And you're not really sure you want to step into the spotlight when it means that all eyes are going to be on you, right? Sometimes it's just easier to keep your head down and do your job and just hope that somebody finally notices you. Well, our guest for today, Ashley Bright, wants you to step out of the shadows. He believes that the world needs more of the leadership that women have to offer. And in just a minute, you're going to learn how you can put yourself forward to clients or employers or even potential dates in a way that feels authentic and good rather than salesy and slimy. Ashley Bright is a father, entrepreneur, and passionate storyteller. In 2013, after 16 years of presenting to Fortune 500 companies, he founded Ashley Bright Presents to teach experienced entrepreneurs and business leaders to avoid costly communication mistakes that could cost them millions. Honor Health, United Way, and Arizona State University are among the many clients that use Ashley's impact speaking method to help their leaders confront their fears, avoid costly mistakes, and get the money they need to succeed. Welcome, Ashley.
Hello. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's exciting. I'm glad to be here.
So I want to start out with a big question. Not all of us want to be like big stars. Some of us are quite happy being little stars, helping other people, doing our job, not making much of a fuss. So why do you believe that the world needs more women to step up?
Well, I think there's a variety of reasons. I think, most importantly, it's a different perspective that I think women bring to the conversation. Just the way they approach problems, the way they approach human interactions, I think is so valuable and has always been needed, but I would say is needed now more than ever. And so I think it's critical. And so your question there about sort of people that may not feel comfortable, they may not want to step up. I think, we all sort of step up in our own way. And so I think that, one of the things I've discovered in my career and in my life is that there's certain limiting beliefs that I had about what I could and couldn't do. And I almost sometimes needed to kind of push through that and approach that fear and that anxiety with sort of positive energy at the outcome of what I'm going to do. And you discover new things. And so I think it's important to just push those boundaries as much as you can.
So do you think that more women aren't stepping up because of limiting beliefs, or, are there other factors involved, like maybe the fact that the, executive climate isn't always friendly to women and that sort of thing?
I believe that's definitely a big part of it. My wife, I learn a lot, obviously, from sort of her interactions in the world. And I understand that it can make a huge difference what sort of an environment you're in, what's the energy going on there, how are people around you operating. And so it's definitely another layer of challenge that I think many people don't appreciate. But I think, looking for those opportunities is critical for personal growth. And I think the bigger impact that can be had on your organization and the people you work with.
So let's talk about some of those limiting beliefs. Like, what are some specific ones that like you encounter in your clients that seem to hold people back?
Well, I think one of the big ones is this idea that, sort of either A, no one wants to listen to me, or B, who am I to talk about this topic? And, this is something I see both, women, men, it's sort of this universal sort of perspective. And it's always interesting to me because, I'm sitting there sort of interacting with someone who has started their own company, they are having an impact on the world, they're changing people's lives, and then they sit there and say, who am I to talk about this? And it's, I think oftentimes we need someone else to sort of look at what we're doing and point out like, no, this is amazing. You need to share this, or you are an authority, you are a guru. Like, don't deny people the value that you can bring. So I think that is a big one, that we just don't realize how valuable what we have to share is.
Wow. And I have no idea how you'd break through that. Like, one of the things I really admire, I follow a lot of girl bosses on Instagram, and they're like hustlers, and they just have this total confidence that if they put something out in the world, people are going to love it. And then, there's the rest of us who always worry that we're wasting people's time. There is a funny study about, funny, I shouldn't say it's funny, a terrible study about women won't put them forward to a job if they don't feel like they have the experience, whereas men may have a lot less experience and think, oh, I'm qualified. And there's also things like, when we work with clients, we are afraid sometimes to tell a client that we can definitely fix their problem when we're actually not sure. And so that is the big question, is that how do we convince other people to believe in us when we don't necessarily believe in us?
Okay, well, I mean, one of the things that I've learned, and most recently I'm working with a business coach right now, is this sort of the story that we tell ourselves. And for me, I've been using this mantra lately, or this acronym, which is TREE. It's TREEE. And to be honest, I don't know the order of the E's, but the TR is what's important. And what that stands for is T is trigger, and then R is response. And so, if you take any situation, an upcoming job interview, a public speaking opportunity, running a meeting, whatever that is, the trigger is that event, and then how you respond to it makes all the difference. And so if you go into it responding with like, no one's going to trust me, I don't have value, or I'm not sure I can do this, then the E's that follow are your emotions coming out of that, the level of effort you put into that, and then that third one. Versus if you were to say, I have this upcoming meeting, and rather than being afraid, my response is going to be, hey, this is a great opportunity to show my value. This is a great opportunity to change that problem that we've been dealing with. This is a great opportunity to help our clients, etc. Then your emotions and your effect and your response are in that space of positivity and value and impact. And it's not an overnight solution, but I've noticed that over time, you start to sort of go through that really quickly in your head whenever these opportunities come up. And it's a great way to just kind of get you in this mental space of, I have value, I can bring tremendous impact to this, and I can change lives. And that is gold as far as I'm concerned. And that's where it starts, in my opinion.
So there's so much in that answer. The first thing is, when you talked about triggers and response, I think from a psychological perspective, so many of us have tried to speak up, especially if we were like new and starting out in our industry and we had all these ideas and we got shut down. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we got shut down in really bad ways. We maybe got shut down because of how we looked, shut down because we're a woman. And so when somebody says something innocuous, like, oh, you said that, how does that work? And you're thinking, I just said something stupid. You think they've seen through it, and they can see that I'm just a fraud. You automatically get triggered, and your response is the same response you've been responding through over and over. So you're right, this is not an easy shift to make, because those psychological triggers of years of being shut down in the workplace are probably going to take a long time to fix, aren't they?
Definitely. And I recognize too, I'm coming from a place that is very different from, where women are in their organization, where they are in their life, and the perceptions in society. But I fundamentally think that figuring out the stories you tell yourself and how you think about yourself and your value, it has to be that cornerstone, in order to grow. And then all the things that come from that and the opportunities that come from that approach to it.
Yeah. And the other thing I love about your tree model is that what people are focusing on is, the effort they put in, the emotions. So what we're looking at how we can serve others rather than thinking, I'm so amazing. For me as a woman, one of the issues with leadership is this: I have a belief that if you're going to be a leader, you should think you're pretty awesome. But there's another way of being a leader, and that is, I'm just going to forget about myself. I'm going to focus on how do I serve my clients? How do I serve the people who need me? Get myself out of the equation. And as long as I keep my focus on them, I'm not thinking about myself, and I can forget about all these doubts I have.
Yeah, that is a real key. When I do public speaking, or when I work with people that are doing public speaking, that's also the sort of the shift that has to happen. Because I think oftentimes when we are getting up in front of a group of people, we fixate on ourselves. And in some cases it's ego, that I'm so good and look at all this value and look at all these people that are here to listen to me. When really what you need to do is shift your focus to the audience or the people you're speaking to and who's receiving this message and these things you're sharing. Am I being relevant to them? Am I speaking in a language that they can connect with? And it's starting to put you in this mindset of them and how do we help them? And so with that, there's a TED speaker I saw years ago, and they were asking about anxiety and that kind of thing. And he said that he never feels nervous because he's just going out there to share and help. And he feels like if you frame it in that way, then it's just a joy. You go out there, people take something from it. Maybe they don't, but you're adding value, as opposed to, this is the future of my career and it's all about me and I want to look great and I want a great clip for my website and that kind of thing. So again, I think it's very much about that mental framing and kind of getting your head in the right place.
And what I was totally thinking about when you were talking about this is the dating world. Often when we go out on a date, we think it's got to be about, I've got to show him how awesome I am. I've got to show him all this awesome stuff about myself. I've got to have all these cool things to say. But if we maybe make that mental shift you were talking about to how can I connect with this person, it might change things.
Very much. I mean, I think, one of the real fundamentals in any type of communication is your ability to listen. And then with that active listening, you are responding with sort of relevant information. And so whether you're talking about, I think, a dating scene or whether you're looking at networking events, that's, I think, where a lot of that fear and anxiety comes from, is that people feel like, well, I need to be the superstar. I need to be adding value. I need to show them how great I am, as opposed to really just listening, asking a few really critical, probing questions at the right time, being actively engaged in that conversation. Those are the things that people remember. And especially when we're talking about, say, business conversations or networking, some of the most successful networkers rarely talk about their business because they get to know people on a personal level. And so if you're at a business function and you are sort of meeting with, 10, 20, 30, 40 people in these networking events, and 2 or 3 of them talked about family and vacations and these other things that you can connect on a personal level, those are the people you're going to remember, and you're going to follow up with. And then you can talk business. You can talk about the offerings or whatever it is. Because I think the notion that you're going to make a sale or land your next your boyfriend, husband, whatever you want to say, in that first interaction is foolhardy. I would hope that we're not that quick to make those decisions. But it is about laying that foundation and building that relationship. And so listening and probing questions.
What you're saying. Part of it is because it totally ties into my views on dating, which is the fact that you meet someone and they may or may not fit in your preconceived notion of what you want in a partner, but that doesn't mean that you can't create a connection and have a relationship that could be valuable in other ways. Like you could become friends and they could introduce you to someone else, or maybe they have some information. There's always value in other people, even if that other person can't give you the sale you want or give you the relationship you want.
Correct. Yeah. And it's about that active listening and asking the right, and, just taking it wherever it leads you. And it's really powerful.
Wow. So I want to ask you a question. This is a situation that so many of us run into, especially I think today. We notice something in our organization that isn't right. We notice something that needs to be improved, but we also know that if we say anything, it's going to challenge the status quo in a big way. People are not going to like what we have to say. Mm-hmm. How can we get the courage to tell people things they don't want to hear?
That is an interesting one. I think that it's very important to frame the conversation based on the people who are going to be listening to this. And so, if you have people that are interested in the financial side of things or the ROI, whereas you may be interested in, the communication component of it or the production aspect or productivity or something to that effect, don't focus on what you want. Focus on what the people you're speaking to are going to want. And so if you frame it in the context of, hey, by adopting this, I believe we could save, $1 million a year or whatever it is, suddenly you've got someone's attention. And I think that, much like public speaking, you want to be looking at what does your audience need to hear? What are they there for? Versus what do you want to say? And so I think that is, again, a place to start. With that said, I think that it does take some sort of perspective to sort of look at this and evaluate how to approach this. And I'm going to share, I've been sort of looking for the right opportunity to share this story because I just think it's so brilliant. But over a couple of weeks ago, my family and I were visiting my sister and her kids. And I had this moment, I walked out in the backyard and my two sons were on this rope swing that was in the backyard. And my niece walked out there and I was just kind of watching this and she started playing with a hula hoop that was kind of there. And so then, one of my sons got off the rope and walked over and started playing with the hula hoop. So then she went over and started using a jump rope that was right next to them. So she's doing the jump rope. And then my other son walked over and started playing with the jump rope. And then she walked over and got on the swing. And as she walked past me, she said, I wanted the swing the whole time anyway. And so I loved that at, 11 years old, she'd already sort of figured out a way to sort of get the things she wanted without, screaming and yelling and making a stink. It was very sort of, she observed the situation and the dynamics and she just, did her thing and it attracted them. And then she walked over and nobody was the wiser except me. So
that is it. We can always get what we want, but maybe we don't do it in a masculine way. We don't go and have a fight and confrontation.
Correct. I think to your very first question, I think that is the sort of the different perspective and the different approach to problem solving and interactions that I think women bring to the table. Men are so kind of like, we're going right for it. We're just plowing right through. And, I think any woman who has operated in a space with managers and leaders and powerful egos and that kind of thing knows that there are, other ways you have to kind of move through this space in order to kind of get the results you need.
Yeah. So tell us about your impact speaking method.
Certainly. So over the last 5 or 6 years, I've been, working with different clients and group coaching and one-on-one coaching. And I've started to see kind of where the real needs are and sort of what the value is that we can bring. And so I've identified these 6 kind of fundamental keys to any form of communication, whether it's public speaking in front of a large group or whether it's one-on-one or in business meetings. And they are sort of these 6 things are, they make up impact. It's this acronym. So I is about irresistible messaging. I think you fundamentally need to have messaging that is focused and aligned and relevant to your audience. The second piece is meaningful connections. And that comes through a display of empathy and creating that common ground with your audience. So we're meeting in the middle. And then the third piece is a powerful performance. I think far too often we discount kind of the value that our physical being brings to the conversation in terms of our hand gestures and our body language and sort of how we're moving and owning the space. And so that is a really powerful part of communication. And then if you're doing those 3 things really well, what you're doing is this 4th piece, which is activating hearts and minds. And so that means that you're really resonating with your audience, you're planting these seeds, and you're getting them to start thinking about something and overcoming maybe a bias that they had or some preconceived notions. And again, if you've done that appropriately, you move into the 5th, which is creating change. And this is about really addressing that problem you're trying to solve. It could be simply we want, higher productivity, we want investment, we want sales. And then the 6th piece, which I think is sort of the one that really sticks with you, is transforming yourself. And so that is very much about kind of overcoming, or I like to say crushing those limiting beliefs about yourself. It's stepping into the real you. And discovering that awesome that you bring to the table. And so those are kind of the 6 key things that I believe make up for great communication. So when I start working with people, what I've discovered is you need to have a goal in mind. especially dealing with things like public speaking, where people have their own sort of anxieties and fears, and they'll put everything in their way to have to sort of not do it. And so what I do is I'll have people identify, it could be an industry event, it could be an internal presentation at their company, it could be a community event, it could be something we sign them up for. But the idea is that they're working towards a goal. And so then as we develop that public speaking opportunity, the talking points, the messaging, the visuals, and we do rehearsals, we're touching on those 6 kind of key areas. The goal being that as you walk out on stage, you go into that event, you've now worked through kind of what are the personal things that you were overcoming, how have you refined that language and that messaging, how are you bringing it to life visually, and then what are you doing with your body and your voice to support that message and support your goals for that conversation. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Fantastic. And for those of you watching, you can actually work with Ashley. You can watch his YouTube channel. He's got free advice on his YouTube channel. There's a ton of stuff, and you can find it all at yourbrilliance.org/bright. That's yourbrilliance.org/BRIGHT. Thank you, Ashley, for coming onto the show. And I wondered if you had any last message you'd like to leave our viewers with.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. I think, it's something I think I've been beating this drum a little bit throughout this conversation, but I think the key is identify those limiting beliefs that you have about yourself, and then do whatever you need to do to try and break through those. It's not going to happen overnight, but I guarantee you will discover something new, and you will be amazed at the opportunities that present themselves. So just do it.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ashley. And thank you out there for watching. We hope to see you again soon. Until then, let your brilliance shine.